I'd just like to welcome you here today. We get this thing rolling. This is our 275th Zoom for the Victoria Electric Vehicle Association coffee chat. We like to get together in the sunny weather. Boy, what a treat. I was showing folks earlier that I'm producing a nice chunk of juice here on my solar panel as we sit here. Can you read that? It's 5.3 kilowatts. And so that's about pretty close to 40 kilometers per hour worth of juice. I'd like to welcome, we got Heather Kellington here. She's our treasurer. Wave to the crowd. Of course, Glenn, I mentioned, he's here, our director in charge of research. Closer to the camera, Glenn. Right in, right in. Skookum. 5 point something. And of course, our main button pusher, Jim Henshaw, who is always on call and on duty and completely, I don't know, you can't shake him. He's reliable and consistent and our main weapon in our battle for whatever our battle is. I don't know. I'm going to get into a whole talk about battles here. In our fun. That's it. Thank you. I'd also like to actually thank you all, our members, for your support. Quite a few of you I saw at a scenic speaker series that Glenn and I had participated in the other day. And quite a few of you showed up for that. Thanks so much, because I know a lot of the talk is familiar information for you guys. And the scenic folk were thrilled. We got over 30 people on board for that. But I'd like to mention, of course, we have merchandise. We have our masks, which have a nice little logo with no emissions written there. We've got our t-shirts with a nice, even nicer looking, bigger logo on it. And it says member on the sleeve. And they're really comfy. I've been wearing this one more than just for shows, because boy, is it comfy, and it's a really nice quality. Those are available online, and if you order them in our local, we'll deliver free of charge. Otherwise, we can always post them to you. It's available on our website, victoriaevassociation.com. Well, I think this is a good start, and we'll get going with our Starlink presentation, I think. Just get right off the top and go to that. So, Darcy, if you'd like to take over from here.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, so my name's Darcy Gibbons. I live in the countryside near Duncan, about 8 kilometers out of town. I was just checking my solar. It's putting out about 9,000 watts right now. So yeah, we've had some really good sunny days here. It's been, I think by the look of it, it might go down as the best April on record that I've had with solar, because it's certainly definitely more than previous years that I've seen at this point. And I guess anything else about me? Well, I'm always a bit of a do-it-yourselfer, so everything I've done so far with the solar, I've done it myself, installed it all, because I just really wanted to learn about it and understand it. And the other thing I'm into is e-bikes. I'm going to go, in fact, right after this, I won't be able to stick around for the whole meeting. I'm going for an e-bike ride with some friends, and that's another really interesting topic that it's, I mean, I see them more all the time, and it's quite interesting. One more sustainable means of transportation. Yeah, so the Starlink, I received it just after New Year's because, of course, I'd read that it was available or possibly available. So I applied, and pretty much right away they got back to me, and it was within, I think, a week and a half I had it. So, you know, and I would say this, in the beginning, I mean, I was fairly impressed with it, but there were some outages that would happen if I was doing if I was on the Zoom call or a WebEx or whatever, you know, you would notice that once in a while it would freeze up. That seems to be getting better all the time. So that's good news. And I've actually canvassed a few of my friends who have it. I used to live on Hornby Island, and so on Hornby Island, the TELUS internet service is terrible. Like some people are down to like half a megabit per second if they're in a bad area. So Starlink's been a real godsend for those people, and they are very happy with it. And they do report the occasional outage, usually at night, they say. And the other day, well, actually yesterday, so basically, why did I get Starlink? Because number one, I'm interested in it, right? I want to understand the technology. Is it something we can use in my case, it would be a backup system, because I don't need it here, right? I mean, I've got Shaw, high-speed Shaw, works just fine for the most part. However, I'm in the IT industry, so I support a lot of people remotely since COVID. And so if I don't have a good connection, then I can, you can't support people at all. And for a long time after the pandemic started, I was getting dropouts, and it was ridiculous. I could hardly keep a VPN going. In the end, after a few months of calling Shaw, complaining, they eventually came and did something on the road. And that's what eventually solved my problem. Of course, that was before I had Starlink, but that would have been a great system to say, okay, you know what, that's not working. I'm just going to switch over to my Starlink. I don't know if you can see this. I did this just yesterday. That was the speed that I was getting. Does that show up?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so 220 megabits down, 12 megabits upload. Latency was around 17 milliseconds unloaded and 91 loaded. I'm not quite sure what they actually mean by that, loaded and unloaded, but it's definitely usable without a problem, except for this occasional outage. And of course, that's because it's still in beta right now. They call it a beta. It's obviously working 99.8% of the time. It's fine. There's just this occasional time where they're either shifting satellites or the satellites are just going overhead and just missing it. What's interesting is that the dish is pointed north, which is odd. It's like normally if you were on any other kind of satellite, you're going to be pointing south, but this Starlink is pointing north. And north, when I say north, it's not too far off of vertical, but it's still pointing north. So that's an interesting thing. So they clearly are having their satellites in a much different orientation than someone like HughesNet or I forget what it's called, ExploreNet in Canada, I think it's called, because that's definitely pointing south. And in fact, at a fairly low angle, so you have to have a fairly wide opening in your southern location to get a good signal. And even at that, the signal is nothing near what Starlink produces. So the other thing I wanted to test was, because I don't want to have this on all the time, I don't want to pay for a $150 a month connection when I don't really need it. I wanted to know, okay, how fast can I bring this thing back online? Got the hardware, and I tested it and I was all happy with it. Then I canceled the service because I go, why spend money if you don't have to? Because really Shaw is cheaper. So I cancel it. And then I wanted to make sure I could turn it back on for this meeting. So I called them. I actually sent a message on, you don't actually call them, you actually give them a service request. And I said, I want to turn this back on. And I sent the request at 11 p.m. Friday night. Friday night? No, today's Saturday. Sorry, Thursday night. And by Friday morning, it was working again. So they clearly have a very quick turnaround. You can get the thing up and going. So personally, I really think for people like us who live in an urban center where, there's no real reason for us to have Starlink unless you're out in Hornby Island. Now there's a good reason because they can't get good internet no matter how much they pay. But as a backup system, it's fantastic because it's very quick to bring back online. So that's my story in a nutshell, and that's my experience. So I don't know if you have any questions about that.
That's awesome. I just jump in right off the top. I'd kind of like to hear a installation breakdown from the box to boxing. You get your box and then you're watching a boxing match somewhere. Could you just quickly walk through that process? Maybe mention the price for the equipment?
I think the equipment was around $800, if I recall. And the unboxing was the easiest thing I've ever done. Honestly, you don't have to know anything to go through this process. It's way easier than hooking up a Shaw modem, for instance. You basically take it out of the box, pull the thing out, put it on its tripod, stick it out in your lawn somewhere or wherever you want to put it, as long as you've got, relatively no trees blocking it. Trees would block it. And so but what's also nice is it comes with an app, and you can even download the app for free, even if you don't have Starlink. And it actually uses your camera, and you can actually point it up there and say, it'll tell you whether you've got actual open area. And so that you can download that right now and try it. So that's worth doing. And basically within, within a few minutes, it was up and running. It was like, I'd never seen a simpler install.
Oh, that's good to know. Anyone else got questions? Fire away is your chance.
Darcy, I checked my Shaw this morning, and you're about 50 to 60 megabytes faster.
Let me just make sure that I'm connected to, yes, I am connected to it. I'm just going to do it again because it does vary, right?
Sure.
Starlink.
Anyone else got a quick question? You can type it in chat if you're shy.
I'm gonna run the speed test here.
A little closer, Darcy, just right in 220, 230, 210, 180, 170.
Crap.
Oh, 170.
170.
Okay,
Excellent.
so
So
still
yeah.
faster than Shaw.
It's gotten faster over time. When I first got it, it might top out at 150, but it was more traditionally in the just under 100, maybe like 75, 85 kind of thing. So it's definitely getting better. And I would say it's getting better all the time. The reliability and the speed is increasing all the time. And of course, Elon has said that that's what they're working toward, getting the latency as low as possible. Because a lot of those guys are gamers, right? They want the lowest latency possible. I'm not a gamer. I could care less about that, but it is nice to have low latency for any kind of real time.
Right on. The question, how much is the monthly subscription? And there's an assumption here we aren't, there's no tiers, I suppose, like the other providers.
No tiers, unlimited data. That's what they're saying for now, at least. That may change in the future. You know, of course, we never know, right? That's up to the company to decide. But it's with tax, $144 a month. Which, you know, for me, I got Shaw. I'm paying, I don't know. Oh gosh, I got the Shaw internet, the Shaw phone. I mean, I never watch TV, but it's some kind of a basic service. I think I'm paying $90 a month for that.
Yeah, that sounds at least that, maybe 120.
And that gives me 300 megabits down and about 15 up. So, you know, is Starlink more expensive than Shaw? Yes, it is, but not by a whole lot.
Out of interest, I understand that Starlink is, in a sense, subsidizing the cost of the equipment, and that indeed it would be triple the cost we're paying, I think, as they introduce it, because they don't want to put the product out there and then slowly work it down. They're just coming in at a price they feel they want to be at. So who knows what will happen to the.
Yeah, and the other thing to note is that it's not necessarily available everywhere. They do have a certain, you know, latitude, or is it, yeah, it'd be latitude, I guess, that it's available in, which is mostly in the Northern Hemisphere, actually. It started there. And if you take it more than about, I think it worked within a 40-kilometer range of where you live. If you try to go more than 40 kilometers from your home and use it, it won't work.
Right on. Mike, fire away.
Yeah, Darcy, I'm kind of curious. Does it provide automatic fallover between your main Shaw and the Starlink? So if Shaw were to go down and you had Starlink also operational, would your link automatically fall over, or would you have to disconnect from Shaw and then go back over to Starlink?
Well, you'd have to disconnect. However, if I wanted to get more complicated, there are ways of doing that. And for a home internet solution, you could buy a router that has 2 separate WAN ports on it. But that's kind of pricey. Like, most people don't have that, right? But could it be done? Yes, it could be done. But I'm not doing that because I don't have, I mean, it's very simple for me just to, if that's not working, I'll just either change my Ethernet port to that over here to there, or I'll change my Wi-Fi to the Starlink. The Starlink comes with a little modem that puts out a Wi-Fi signal. I mean, you know, maybe I'll go get that little modem just because you can see what it looks like.
It looks like a Cybertruck to me,
Yeah,
without wheels. I don't know. Tesla, Starlink, SpaceX. I don't know. Maybe not SpaceX. Tesla certainly likes angular looks.
It's a pretty cool looking little thing. You're right. It's very angular, as you can see.
It's a Cybertruck without wheels.
There's the so you got 2 ports on the back, one that's into the power over Ethernet, and then out, if you want to plug that into your home internet, there's a second one there. So yeah, pretty small, but very cute looking. It's sort of aluminum on one part and then white on the other part.
Cool. Questions? Anyone else got a
Yeah,
question or a comment about this product?
yeah.
Which,
So,
Richard, yeah.
What is outside? What is that talking to? Like, what is it you put outside your house?
It's a little white satellite dish. And it's actually like, you know how most dishes are like concave. This has got a flat surface on it. Obviously, it's concave underneath, but they've put a flat white surface over top of it
To protect it, perhaps?
protect it. It's also runs quite warm. Like when it snowed, the snow didn't last on that thing long at all before it was melted.
And
Starlink has.
how do you attach it? Do you have it on a stick or something, or do you?
I just got it sitting on the lawn.
On a tripod, he said.
But you know what? I mean, yeah, if I was going to mount it permanently, I'd put it either on the roof but honestly, it works just fine out there. And since I'm not using it full time, when I don't need it, I'll just pack it up and bring it inside.
Starlink has nicknamed this device Dishy McFlatface.
Yes.
I have a question for you, Darcy.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd said that the dish is set up oriented north. So was that your choice of orientation, or did the dish talk to you and say, hey, I want to point more to the north?
Well, that's the other nice thing about the installation. It is dead simple. You just stick it there, and when you put it out there, it just turns on and it just goes, burp, 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 burp. There it is. Like it does it all itself. Have you ever tried to set up a long time ago, I had a Bell system right here where it was television and whatnot. Man, if you have to work hard to get that thing oriented, and it's all up to you. Like move it a little bit, and then you hear the beep, 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 beep. This thing is completely automatic.
So the dish is gimbaled then, or?
It's gimbaled, yes.
Great, thanks.
Now, Glenn, we know you just want to use that word. You knew all along the answer to that question, didn't you? Anyone else?
I have no gimbal what you're talking about.
Darcy, does it serve just like one set? Like you can hook up to one computer, or is it expandable, like for a whole reserve or something like that?
Honestly, it's really just like any other internet connection, depending on how you want to distribute that. If you've got an Ethernet switch, you can plug as many people as you want into that. Of course, with the bandwidth that you're given there, that's going to be somewhat restrictive, right? You can't have 1,000 people on there and expect to have good performance. But I would think with this performance, you'd probably have 10 to 15 people wouldn't be too far out of the question, because not everyone's sucking bandwidth at any given time.
Yeah, and I understand with 1,000 satellites up now, they're expanding to 12,000, 15,000. I don't know. I hear numbers go up and up. And as they expand, the satellites can be closer together, which improves things.
Yes. Now they're also talking, I know maybe you've read about this, they're talking about in the future having a laser connection between the satellites so that they could actually, let's say you're out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and you need a downlink at some point, right? So, and if the satellites that are above me are probably downlinking to Vancouver, I think, because it's in the vicinity of the cell, they call it, right? The cell that's covering a certain area. But out in the middle of the Pacific, how are you going to do that? Because that cell doesn't come anywhere near land. So they're talking about having a laser connection between satellites, high speed, to finally get to a land link and go back down. So that's
actually, Darcy, they're already working between it. So the satellites are continuously moving, and they're handing off data via laser between the network up there and then to the down stations as well.
Yeah, so I'd understood that was still under development.
Does BC Ferries know that this is available?
Well, who knows? But what's interesting is, I mean, I think they asked Elon about that, and he said, well, it's not designed for moving vehicles at this point, but that's possibly a future possibility.
And we have a question come in about cell phone service, whether it includes it, and if not, if it does, how, and if not, do you know when?
Well, you have to define what you mean by cell phone service.
Yeah, monthly.
Wi-Fi calling, sure, because it's just Wi-Fi. But an actual cellular connection, no, it's not designed for that.
So like VoIP would work.
Yep, VoIP definitely would work.
Gotcha.
It does work. I've tried it, but I was not thrilled with it. Let's put it that way, because it was still in its infancy, and there was some times when I would just freeze up for 15 seconds. But they're working on that. It's getting better all the time.
Last time I talked to my nephew in Papua New Guinea, it froze up for 2 minutes at a time. So
Right.
we were using a VoIP connection. That was, any other questions then? Come down to the wire here.
Just a quick one here. I signed up using my friend's address in Sointula, BC, and then I looked at the cost, and I'm going to go up there on Monday and check it out. I've got the app loaded here and see what his tree situation's like. But he's got a a cell thing from BC Telephone or Telus that allows him to have some kind of a dish that uses or not a dish, some kind of a cellular data that allows him to go on the internet. That's kind of working for him.
Yeah, kind of, I would say. I've tried that before because where I live, I have no cell service. I just live in the river valley and there's just no cell service here, even though I'm that close to Duncan. So I tried one of those devices, which is basically a cell phone booster. It's a Yagi antenna that goes up as high as you can get it, and you point it toward wherever you think the nearest, there's ways of sort of adjusting that, but basically you point that toward the nearest cell tower, but it never really worked very well.
Yeah, it'd be just interesting. I've been up there a couple of times, and he was trying to do. He's on Malcolm Island, which is near Cormorant Island, so he's in Sointula near Alert Bay, and Alert Bay has got just about all the services that you'd ever want. And Telus is big there, so there's a Ragged Edge is supplying the internet out there, and he's got an antenna that he had that pointed towards Cormorant Island, which was giving him internet, but it was kind of spotty, and now he's got this. SIM card in a device that is getting him internet. And I don't think it's fast, but it's working. And it's not that expensive.
That's great.
So
We got one more.
With 144 a month might be a little expensive.
I have a question about Starlink to Tesla. I think that's a logical question because we all wonder when you can drive down the road. But that's probably your Wi-Fi answer, isn't it?
I think that what Elon said was that didn't really make sense to put it in the Tesla because it'd be better off to use the 5G, which would be, multiple high speed, more short range, right?
Yeah, I think I read that myself. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful, Darcy. That's awesome bits of information there for us. We're looking forward to hearing more about your experience as the months grind along, and maybe you find yourself using it more regularly as the service improves. You check back in maybe in 6 months and find out if you've seen an improvement or a change or whatever.
One thing I'm really looking forward to is they do say they're working on it so that you can take it anywhere. So in other words, you could do a cross Canada trip and bring it with you and have your now that would be awesome.
That's neat.
That would be for me perfect because then it can work from anywhere.
So we just need wheels and a seat on the Dishy McFlat face, and we don't even need the car. That's that's awesome. Well, I'm assuming that's good. This is perhaps a good place to close your presentation here. And if you need to get going, that's fine. We appreciate your time, that's for sure. And being so close to us here, I think Duncan. I'm out in Colwood, and I think that's almost as remote as Duncan, at least in Victoria resident size.
Probably would be. Are you guys going to record this?
Jim records these.
Oh, he does. Okay.
Yeah.
And they go up on YouTube, do they, Jim?
Yeah, either tomorrow or Monday, depending.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, quite often I don't get to these meetings because I work full time, and then my Saturday and Sunday are like, I got things that I want to do. So it's hard to get in, but
Fair enough.
Thanks for asking me. I mean, I appreciate sharing whatever I know.
Oh, our pleasure. The pleasure is all ours, really. We really do appreciate it. So thank you very much, and take care. Enjoy the sun.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Darcy. And you can blame me for this. That was
That's
my
right.
idea to get you in.
Okay, yeah, thanks you.
Darcy,
right.
please send me your email contact.
Who's that?
Bruce Stout, I just sent you a direct message from the chat.
Sure thing.
Send me an email, please.
Okay, I'll do that. If you ever want me to talk about e-bikes, just let me know.
Yeah, well, that could be another episode.
Okay,
Take care now. Bye-bye.
you do. Bye-bye.
So that's a little presentation. Boy, that's interesting. It's really great to hear this from firsthand accounts. I really enjoy that, and especially even the early stages of it, because you get a little piece of the reality of the technology as it breaks into the market. And I know Musk and his gang seem to be pretty good at just trying stuff and getting it out there quick, testing it, and then rolling out the product. So that's very helpful. I really enjoy that. Our next visitor, Jason Cruikshank from Saskatchewan EVA, I believe I have that part right, is here to talk about a treat that the EV owners found out about just the last week or two. Jason, why don't you just take it away and let us know what you've got for us?
Yeah, for sure. So maybe I'll just do a quick kind of introduction to myself and the organization. So yeah, my name is Jason Cruikshank, and in 2017 we got our first EV, a Chevy Bolt EV. Since then, we've also added a Volvo XC90 T8 plug-in hybrid to our fleet as well. And yeah, around that same time, we founded Sask EV, which is kind of the main EV advocacy group up here around the Saskatoon area. And so yeah, so since then we've been doing presentations, and we've been doing member meetings with other drivers in the area, and talking to utilities, talking to governments, talking to kind of various different organizations. And so that kind of includes reacting to the fun surprise we got in the provincial budget. And so what that was it's a $150 annual tax that will be applied with vehicle registration. And so we have one vehicle registrar here in Saskatchewan called Saskatchewan General Insurance, or SGI. And so every year when you would go and renew your registration for your vehicle, there would be an extra $150 surprise on there for you to register. So that was what was kind of introduced to us with the provincial budget.
Right on. So I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit of obviously the justification that they give for that, and what your position as a electric vehicle association holds, and then you could perhaps follow with some strategies for moving forward.
Yeah, so obviously we're disappointed that it's the first EV tax in Canada. There are a few in the States, and the provincial government has been making a big deal about the one that's in California there since last year. I think since last June or July. I think July. And they kind of make the arguments that because fully electric vehicles don't pay road tax through the fuel tax, that EV drivers are not contributing towards road maintenance in the province. And so we would kind of counter that with well, for starters, for this year's budget, about more than 40% of the highways budget is not going to be covered by the fuel tax. And so, that's money that's coming from income taxes, that's money that's coming from sales taxes, every taxpayer is paying into that. The other piece is that we don't really have a strong fast charging network here. We do have a few providers on the Trans-Canada. So we've got Tesla and their superchargers, we've got Petro-Canada, the Co-op Connect network just opened here in March. And so we do have some chargers on the Trans-Canada Highway, but so far that's pretty much it. We've got one supercharger just north of the Trans-Canada a little ways, but other than what some of the dealers have, that's all there is. And so that kind of impairs drivers' ability to significantly use the provincial roads and highways, keeping them more to the city roads, which are then largely paid for through property taxes. So, that's kind of what our reaction has been to it. The other thing is that there's only 400 electric vehicles in the province right now. And so this measure is only expected to raise about $60,000, which is, not a lot of money when you're looking at building roads or maintaining highways. And so, we don't see it as a particularly good time, especially while, so many of the other provinces are, introducing incentives, having their utilities invest in fast charging equipment. And so we kind of really see it as counter to what, other provinces and other utilities are doing, because, our utility here, it's a Crown corporation called Sask Power, and they haven't really invested much in this yet either. They're starting to take a little bit more of an interest in it, but they haven't invested in it significantly. So that's kind of been what our position has been on it, and just kind of the disappointment around the introduction of it. As far as kind of strategy and what kind of our perspective has been on it so far, we've been certainly trying to talk to the media a lot to kind of focus and bring attention to it and keep it in the news cycle. We're also encouraging people to write letters to our local newspapers to kind of keep it in the news cycle as well, and for people to reach out to their MLAs to kind of talk about this as well, right? Kind of voice their feelings on it. Just with regard to it seeming like it's very early for our province here.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's acting as a negative incentive is a big challenge, and it sort of we all sat bolt upright because there it was, bing bang, what we've all kind of expected or have talked about for years with EVs and road tax argument. I particularly interested in your understanding of the comment about the highways versus the city streets, which I don't think most people understand. We did do a document some time ago about that, and trying to educate people to some degree about where their road tax, their road maintenance in the city, on the city streets comes from, the property tax. You suggest a letter writing campaign for members, and although I know it's a Saskatchewan provincial thing, you're a neighbor, and before you know it, somebody else is going to justify it in our province. So, we certainly be concerned. Is there anything else though that you can think of perhaps that we could do as a provincial or as a local club? Just, I suppose, the letter writing campaign is one way to start. Anything else you can think of?
Those are the kind of primary initiatives that we've been working so far. We are looking at starting up a petition as well, and we might have kind of more to say around that next week. But so far it's not something that we've launched yet. And I think it's yeah, certainly people with kind of local Saskatchewan experience, it's helpful, but I think it's also helpful for yeah, people in other provinces to talk about this as well. I think sometimes I kind of get the impression that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, people haven't been traveling as much, and they maybe haven't seen the degree of adoption that's happening in other provinces, right? I mean, Manitoba is very similar to us right now in adoption numbers. But if you look at Alberta, there's quite a few more electric vehicles in Alberta, and obviously in British Columbia, you guys just passed the 40,000 mark for the fully electric stuff, and a lot of fast chargers there as well. Like, I think that's part of it, is because we only have the network right now on the Trans-Canada Highway. A lot of people haven't kind of seen them when they're running around town, doing their errands, that sort of thing. And so I don't think having some more exposure to what's actually happening in the other provinces. The fact that, one of the things that we're often reminding people is that, this isn't a technology problem, this is an infrastructure problem. And, there are EV drivers in other provinces and states, who can, do these longer drives, and it's quite practical, right? And, obviously I often talk about Norway as well, where, you see them driving down the highway and, it'll be, they'll decide that they don't want to stop at that fast charger. They'll just drive another 10 or 15 minutes to the next one, right? That's just how much infrastructure there has been penetrated there. So I think, that it's important to bring that perspective as well to it. So, and yeah, there's other stuff on our website as well at www.sastv.ca. And so we're kind of posting updates and details on there, for kind of how we're asking people to help, because, to some extent we do kind of see ourselves as potentially the front line of this battle in Canada. So
yeah, for sure. Glenn.
Yeah, Jason also works government engagement with me at the Electric Vehicle Society of Canada. He's done some great work there.
Oh, thanks, Glenn.
I wonder, this is where you get out to the University of Saskatchewan and you say, I need an economist, a macroeconomist, to look at, the fact that every EV owner out there isn't taking $1,800 a year, throwing it into gasoline, which in our province means almost all that money's gone. There's 40% in taxes, but the other 60% just leaves the province. It's just gone. So the argument would be is you need an economist to say, okay, so what happens if each EV owner drops $1,800 into your local economy? Because we don't all put it under our mattress for our retirement, right? No, we got spare cash, spend it. So yeah, find an economist. And if there's any economist online, or there's any people who know an economist, Jason and I want to talk to you, please.
Yeah, and we're always looking, sorry, I was just going to say, we're always looking to get in contact with those people and reach out. We have had good response so far from kind of the local economists, like you say, the ones at the University of Regina and the University of Saskatchewan. I think one of them came out the day of the government's announcement and said that it was mind-boggling, which, I think is terminology you don't always hear from an economist. So, I think it's become, certainly there are some people who are calling for this for a while. Certainly some people now who are calling for it to be raised. From where they're proposing it currently. But I think we're having success in talking to a lot of people in the middle about the fact that this isn't about the money, right? It's not about the $60,000 for the government. It's a pittance for a provincial budget. It's not really about $150 for drivers. Although there was a UC Davis study that suggested that a very similar price fee in California could reduce EV sales there by 10 to 24% that we're a little bit concerned about. But significantly, it's not about the money. It's about the signal that it's sending and how this compares to what's happening in other provinces, right? Where we're seeing significant focus on EV fast charging by utilities. Where we're seeing, I did an interview with a Montreal radio station the week of the budget. And the first thing he told me, he said, I just got an EV in March. Guess how much the government gave me for it? And he's like, $13,000. Between the two levels of government, I got $13,000 for this EV I just bought. And yeah, we qualify for the federal $5,000 incentive here, but we don't have any provincial incentives of any kind. And so, there's a significant difference in their push to encourage EV adoption. So that's really where the stark difference, I think, is between, introducing a tax versus, all the provinces who are doing stuff with incentives.
Well,
so
sure, the lack of an incentive is in itself a negative incentive in a way. You have
I'd hop in again for briefly, if government in any province or state really wanted to be getting money to fix roads, you'd look at things from two different angles. How many kilometers driven, and what's the weight of the vehicle? So if you did, top of my head, a penny per metric ton, and then that racks out to 15,000 kilometers, $240 for a Nissan Leaf, and about $40,000 a year for a Class 8 truck. So, this Class 8 truck is doing a whole lot more damage than your Leaf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the arguments that we've been making is that, it's really I think quite a few studies have now shown that it's really the heavy duty vehicles that are doing the damage to the roads, right? It's not any of the light duty vehicles that weigh enough to have a significant impact, right? Most of the damage is going to come from either weather or the heavy duty semis and stuff going down the highways. So I was going to make another point. No, I can't quite remember what it was, but the other piece is that we've been kind of trying to balance this a little bit as far as, being that this is the first tax in Canada, being that, this is a tax being introduced into a province with such weak adoption. We have 1.4 million vehicles registered in Saskatchewan, probably about 820,000 or so of those are kind of close to the light duty standard. So, 400 is really a drop in the bucket when you're thinking about those numbers. So, we don't want to really legitimize the tax too much by engaging in kind of, back and forth discussions about what it should look like at this stage. We just think it's way too early for anything. But certainly at some point down the line, we know that we're going to have discussions about, how we're going to pay for this going forward as we see, fossil fuel vehicles kind of, start to go away here.
Yeah, there's a comment here about the fairness of this tax. It's interesting because I'm just looking at it at 2 cents a kilometer, which is my estimation here for the cost of electricity per kilometer. The $150 buys you 7,500 kilometers, while a lighter user might even, it might be equivalent to costing them 3 cents a kilometer, which is more than they pay for the fuel in the first place. So that truly is not a fair way to implement it. I have a question here about what about the offset of no carbon pollution and its contribution to the provincial reduction goals? It's not sure if you want to handle that comment, perhaps, if you have something to say about it.
Yeah, so I think one of the comments that we've made with this as well is that this is kind of one more headwind on top of a few headwinds that we've been facing. Obviously, we're still one of the provinces in Canada that produces electricity from coal. We also, according to an energyhub.org study, we also have some of the most expensive electricity in the country here in Saskatchewan. And so that's not to say that there isn't a financial benefit to driving an EV here. There is. You know, it's not the same as what you would see in Manitoba or Quebec or you know, most other provinces in the country. And then, yeah, you know, we're still working to kind of clean up the electrical grid, right? SaskPower has numbers indicating that, you know, it's about 30 to 40% cleaner today to drive an electric vehicle versus a gasoline vehicle. By 2030, when conventional coal needs to be phased out, you know, that should increase to 70%. So, you know, over the life of these vehicles, you know, they're going to get cleaner while they're on the roads. But I mean, that is a little bit of a struggle in that, you know, the cleanliness benefits of driving an electric vehicle, you know, isn't quite the same yet as it is in some of the other provinces.
Right on. There should be a tax reduction on EVs due to the reduced cost of the health system. Well, isn't that true? Richard made that comment, and we do come to that occasionally. I know that's one of Glenn's favorites. You know, don't forget that cost. There's so many different angles which you could apply with this thing. And it's interesting how $150 a year typically is not a huge sum, but it sparks a big, heavy weighted issue. Anyone else got questions?
And
Jason?
air pollution.
Yeah.
I was just going to say briefly to that you know, air pollution is another big piece of it, right? And you know, they're even, you know, just considering that there's a big difference between, you know, having a tailpipe in downtown Saskatoon versus having a you know, tall smokestack, you know, out with your power plant. You know, when it comes to air pollution, there's a big difference, you know, just between those two, let alone, you know, the extra efficiency improvements and everything else. So.
Jason, do you have any calculations, because you're like us with a single insurance provider? Do you have any data on how much electric cars are saving them in terms of collision and collision avoidance, all of that stuff that's built in?
No, I don't have any data on that. You know, I think probably part of it is, at least from a Saskatchewan perspective, is that, you know, there might not be enough vehicles here yet to be able to kind of make that sort of determination. And, you know, then the other piece about that as well is that, you know, for example, we have a Chevy Bolt EV, the LT version. And so we don't have lane keep assist or, you know, some of those more advanced autonomy functions like you would see in the Teslas or some of the higher end EVs. And so it might be a little bit, you know, the weighting of it might be different across the EV fleet in the province here.
One other thing, here in BC and in Ontario, and I don't know if Saskatchewan does this, but a lot of money that's collected from the gas tax goes to public transit. Is that the case in Saskatchewan?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
You know, there are federal fuel tax transfers. And I know some of that money goes to some of the cities and the municipalities, as far as kind of helping with you know, roads, or, you know, of course, all of the stuff just goes into general revenue, right? So I mean,
right,
you know, talking about where it goes can be a difficult discussion, but, you know, intended to kind of help with some of those projects. But of course, here we're not talking about the federal fuel tax; we're talking about the provincial fuel tax, and I'm not aware of any transfers involving that at the moment.
Okay. So everything that's collected goes to road maintenance and then is augmented by income tax, etc.
Yeah, like currently, so I think about 58. So I think that in this year, so for this budget year that they just introduced the budget for, I think it's projected that the fuel tax would cover about 58% of the highways budget, and then about 42% would have to come from, you know, elsewhere, right? You know, we're in a deficit budget as well, so, you know, coming from debt, coming from income taxes, coming from sales tax. So,
right.
So, and I mean, that's an important mention as well with the California tax. When they implemented that, they didn't just introduce the EV tax, they also introduced an increase in the fuel tax at the same time. And of course, with this measure, it's just an increase for just the creation of the EV tax. So, and, you know, still not doing anything, you know, nothing with regards to hydrogen, nothing with regards to natural gas. And then, you know, no increase for gas or diesel or propane or any of the other fuels that are involved in the fuel tax.
Okay.
Jason, if
yes.
I have a comment and a question. First of all, my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law in Regina told me that they had a great snow dump on Monday, and it's good to see you sitting in a t-shirt in sunlight outside. So obviously Saskatoon is the place in Saskatchewan to move to. for us out here.
Oh,
but-
definitely. Yeah,
but-
you definitely want to come up here. You don't want to go down to Regina. This week has actually been interesting because the weather in Regina and the weather in Saskatoon have been like polar opposites. Regina and the southeast corner there, yeah, they got barreled over with snow. Up here, we got a tiny bit that was melted by Monday, and the rest of the week has been beautiful. So
But my other comment was that 2 years ago when we were in Regina visiting, my youngest brother's granddaughter and her husband live in Regina, and they were interested in a new car, and I was trying to convince them to go electric because I have a Leaf. And we actually went and talked to the Nissan dealer in Regina, and he said, "Oh, no, we're not even allowed to sell electrics in Saskatchewan because there's no infrastructure." So I'm glad to see at least some of the dealers are starting to move electrics out there because I really enjoy
Mhm.
this. But that's basically is the industry starting to push the government and by bringing in electrics and it's kind of the chicken and egg thing. If you don't sell electric cars, nobody's going to build infrastructure. If you build the infrastructure before there's cars, everybody says that's a waste of money. So how do you balance the two? Or do you have any kind of idea who in Saskatchewan is trying to do that? And I will get my brother-in-law and sister-in-law to nag their MP about this whole tax thing.
yeah, that'd be fantastic. So that's actually kind of where Saskatchewan got its start was, when we were shopping for our first EV, one of the things we had to do was go out and find where all the inventory was so we could do our test drives and stuff. And so we made a list of all the plug-in vehicles in the province that we could find. And then when we kind of got to the end of that journey, we decided, well, it'd be a shame to throw this away. And so we kind of threw it up on a blog, and then we kind of kept it updated every month since then. And so that's kind of how we've been trying to help push it along, is to kind of help people connect with the dealers that are selling EVs, because certainly not all of them are yet in Saskatchewan. And with the Nissan dealers in particular, so Evergreen Nissan in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, does sell the Nissan Leaf. They're the only dealer who does. They're about a little more than an hour north of Saskatoon. So they're quite a ways from Regina. They're not too far from Saskatoon, but they're about 3.5 hours from Regina. No fast charging infrastructure to help you along the way, right? We don't have any Canoe connectors up this way yet. And so, I mean, that makes it a challenge, right? And yeah, I think some of the dealers have been, certainly more of the dealers are getting pushed along by the OEMs to offer EVs. We've seen a big push with Hyundai and Chevrolet, especially, in the last little while here to kind of get more dealers enabled. We just had a Tesla store open in Saskatoon here as well, which has helped a lot, especially with test drives and that sort of thing during the pandemic. So, I mean, availability and inventory has increased a lot over the last couple of years here, but it's still a struggle. You can't just walk onto any dealer lots and expect to find one. You've got to do your homework, and so that's always going to make it a little bit more difficult. And then, yeah, like you say, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg thing, right? EVs do have that benefit of being able to charge at home. So, I mean, you can buy it as a great commuter vehicle and then, do more highway travel as you get the infrastructure. But I mean, obviously, we'd like to see it move more quickly than that.
So,
Right on.
Jason, I have a question concerning road trips throughout Saskatchewan. Let's say you want to do a road trip in the province. What kind of a strategy do you have to adopt? Or do you have enough hotels that have level 2 chargers that you can stay at overnight and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we're starting to see more hotels kind of come on board with it. Obviously, hotels are, a really great option because they're kind of used to that business model, right? They put in pools and hot tubs and saunas and free breakfasts and everything else to attract guests. And so, telling them that they need a level 2 charger to bring in guests as well is not, that big of a leap from where they already sit. Although obviously they've been hurt quite a bit by the pandemic in the last year here. So, we are starting to see quite a few, especially the new hotels being built, quite a few of those to offer level 2 charging in the hotels. So we're starting to get a better selection of that. I think we've got 6 or 7 in Saskatoon. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 in Regina as well. Some of the smaller communities are starting to get them as well. I think there's 2 in Prince Albert as an example. Excuse me. So, that's part of it, is kind of planning to, do these trips, make sure you have enough one-way range to get there, and then there being a hotel at the other end. Or, doing trips where, you just got to be able to cover that range with that two-way range with what you've got in the vehicle. For us, we have family in Manitoba that we visit, normally visit a few times a year. And so, that's about just kind of, trying to make sure that we have enough range to get from Saskatoon to Regina. Once we get down there, we can get onto the Petro-Canada fast charge network, and then, we can travel along the Trans-Canada Highway fairly normally. So, that at least kind of works, although in winter, it is difficult to make that trip from Saskatoon down to the Trans-Canada Highway. So there are some trips you can do, but some of them are more difficult. And one of the examples would be Saskatoon to Edmonton, which, it's a divided highway the whole way from here to Edmonton, but we don't have any fast charging network on there yet. It has been promised for this year, hopefully, but we'll see. And so far, it's about just kind of using level 2s to try and make that distance work. And even there, we've had a struggle. A lot of those level 2 stations were provided by PV Mart, which is a local hardware store out here in Alberta and Saskatchewan stuff. I'm not sure how many you have in BC there, but a lot of their locations offered level 2s, but a lot of those have kind of broken down in the last year or so here and been removed. And so, we didn't have the fast charging infrastructure, and now we're even starting to see a lot of gaps on the level 2 side. So, those kinds of road trips are becoming more difficult.
Yeah, this is really sad to hear, because in 2015, I'm Bruce Stout here. In 2015,
Hey,
my
Bruce.
wife and I drove from North Vancouver to Halifax, Nova Scotia. Kent Rathwell of Sun Country Highway was the person that put in the charging station. So in 2012, he could drive a Tesla across Canada, Tesla Roadster. So we went from North Vancouver to Halifax, Nova Scotia and back. The PV Mart stations were amazing, even though they were level 2 stations. They weren't very fast, but they kind of saved our bacon between the Tesla supercharger. I think the last one was, I guess it wasn't even in Kelowna then. I'm trying to think where it was. It was Hope, I guess is where it was. And the next supercharger we found was in Barrie, Ontario. But, there are Sun Country Highway chargers all along the place in those days. Kona had them. Saskatoon, we actually stayed with Kent in Saskatoon, so that solved that problem. And there was a number of other PV Marts along the way, but I'm sorry to hear the PV Marts have broken down.
Yeah, some of them are still working, and we have, we are still reliant on the Sun Country Highway network and the PV Mart stations. But yeah, I mean, it's been, 5 or 6 years now since some of those were installed, I think.
Oh yeah,
And
they're old.
yeah, some of them have just kind of weathered, and they haven't so far chosen to replace them. And so, we've been trying to encourage them to replace them. But I mean, it is a bit of an awkward situation in that for some of these routes, we feel all this momentum with the new models, and certainly we're seeing new inventory in the province here. And, we're seeing the federal incentive, which is really exciting for us here. And so it feels like we have a lot of momentum on some of this stuff. But then on the same side, Tesla no longer offers their models with the dual chargers, which means, level 2 charging is slower than it once was in all of those models. We haven't seen, a lot of faster level 2 charging speeds in models. And then, even then, a lot of our level 2 chargers that we have are starting to break down. And so, in some ways, some of these longer distance trips are harder today than they were a year or two ago. And certainly that's not the direction that we want to be going in. So.
Yeah, Volkswagen is going to have 11 kilowatt in the ID4. So
yeah, the 2022 Bolt, I think, is also going to have a 48 amp charger in it. So, you're starting to kind of see them. Yeah, you're starting to kind of see them move back in that direction again. The Hummer EV, I think, was going to have maybe an 80 amp charger in it. I think the Cadillac Lyriq is also looking at an 80 amp charger, at least as an option. So like now you're kind of seeing them move back in that direction, especially as the battery sizes increase. But
yeah, that was the big advantage of our trip with the 2014 Tesla Model S, is that when I bought the car, it was suggested I order the dual charger for it. It was an extra $1,600, but it was well worth the investment.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference on those road trips where we don't have superchargers or DC fast chargers.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, say hello to Charlie Wang. He's the manager of the Saskatoon Tesla store. He came out of Vancouver. He'd been with them for over 5
Oh, okay.
years. So you should say hi to him and go in and visit.
I'll do that.
With regard to the equity of road tax, I don't own a Class 8 truck, but virtually everything I do own has at one time been in one. And my groceries, they come in a big truck. They beat up the highway. So everybody benefits from those roads. If you walk to the grocery store, you're buying stuff that was transported in a Class 8 truck. So that really the taxes should come from income tax, from the people who actually have the money to pay for it. And also it covers the thing too. If you've got a Leaf and you drive it on once a week to go and get your groceries, compared to a traveling salesman who's driving a diesel pickup truck, you're taxing them totally unfairly.
Yeah, and like that's been part of the discussion here as well, in that, you know, ultimately, you know, likely a lot of the damage that we're seeing on our highways and stuff is caused by, you know, those large farm semis, right, that are you know, transporting grain and other resources across the province. But, you know, does it really make sense to try and apply, you know, extra taxation to them when, like you say, you know, that would increase, you know, costs for grocery stores and all the rest of it. And so, you know, that argument has been kind of made here as well, and is that, you know, maybe, you know, a fuel tax is not the best way for paying for the roads. Maybe it's just a function of, you know, everybody in society kind of benefits from them. Maybe it is something that just kind of needs to come from the general pool. So I mean, like, those are, you know, we don't really want to talk too much about that right now, just because we think this is so early to introduce this here in Saskatchewan. But I think that that's, you know, over the next 5 to 10 years here, you know, as we see kind of that this transition move faster, you know, I think that's going to have to be part of the discussion, is, you know, is how do we want to pay for these things, right? What is fair to society?
So how many provinces have financial incentives to buy electric cars? Is it just BC, Quebec, and Ontario?
Should be
So
across.
Ontario no longer has one. BC has one. The Yukon actually has one now. Quebec has one. Nova Scotia has one, and PEI just introduced one. I don't think it's come into force yet, but they just recently introduced one in the last few weeks here. And I mean, that almost makes it more disappointing, right? Is that Nova Scotia and PEI just introduced their incentives in the last couple of months, you know, a few weeks here. And so to then, you know, be kind of hit on the other side is, you know, a bit of a disappointment.
And there's a guy by the name of Jamie Bernardin who came out of this part of the world. I think he's in Nova Scotia or someplace like that. And they're setting up a used EV sales dealership focused on used EVs. And used EVs is going to get a lot more people into electric vehicles than people who can afford new cars. Just my 2 Teslas in the driveway. One of them was bought for $140,000 in 2017. One of them was bought in June 2020 for $73,000. And the difference between the two cars is the color of the paint on the outside of them. They both get the same kilometers. So used cars is the way to go.
Yeah, and we just actually saw a used car dealer focused on that open in Regina here. They sell hybrid vehicles as well, but yeah, they're focusing on kind of hybrids, plug-in hybrids, fully electric, and that's all that they're going to sell. So they just opened Regina, so that should provide more options. Hearing about a second one in Regina, maybe one in Saskatoon as well. So I think that's going to take off as well.
Can I just ask one question?
Yep.
Jason, is it correct in understanding that most of the quick chargers are in the cities, are in Regina and Saskatoon? Is that
We don't actually have really anything here in Saskatoon.
Oh,
so the Audi dealer and the Porsche dealer both have 50 kilowatt CCS chargers. They're, you know, not always great about letting you know, the public utilize those. And then the Volkswagen dealer has a 24 kilowatt CCS charger, and they've been good about letting the public use that one. But those are the only units we have in Saskatoon. So we actually don't have any superchargers here right now. We don't have any Chatamo chargers here right now in Saskatoon. In Regina, it's a much different story. They've got an 8-stall Tesla supercharger there. They've got a 2-stall Petro-Canada charger. They've got 2-stall Co-op Connect chargers that just opened. So they've got quite a few options there. And then it's actually kind of a spread because of the way that the networks are built along the Trans-Canada. So like we've got one city, Whitewood. I think they have less than 1,000 people living there, but they have a 6-stall supercharger. They have a 2-stall Petro-Canada station, and they have a single-stall Co-op Connect station. And so they actually have more supercharging stalls and more Chatamo stalls than we do here in Saskatoon. And Saskatoon's the biggest city in the province. So it kind of depends, you know, on how the corridors have been managed. But yeah, you know, even though we're the biggest city in the province here, we don't really have much yet. Now that will hopefully change this year. But we've been kind of, you know, waiting for a couple of years for that situation to change. So.
2 years ago, I put it in the chat. 2 years ago, I tried to take my 2015 Leaf across from Vancouver Island to Southern Ontario. And it was just too dicey as to whether I could actually make it from one charging station to another, even with using RV parks, and I had an adapter for that, and then some hotels, and there was a weird plug-in that I couldn't find an adapter for, and so that was that made it impossible to get from one point to another. And it was mainly Saskatchewan and then Southern Ontario was the worst.
Yeah. And I know those trips have been becoming more popular. So if there's anybody who's considering one of those, I might just mention that some of those gaps are starting to be filled in.
Okay.
So one of them was in Maple Creek, Saskatchewan. They had a Tesla supercharger there, but nothing else. They just opened, I think it's a 2-stall Co-op Connect station there. So that kind of fills in that gap that previously existed between Shift Current and Medicine Hat.
Right.
Also this year, Co-op is supposed to build one in Vernon, Manitoba, which will help with the gap between Whitewood and Brandon, which was for some models was a bit long. And so that will help with that gap as well. So some of those larger gaps are being filled in. So for people kind of planning a national trip here for this year, keep that in mind that the situation is improving a bit on the Trans-Canada.
Thanks so
Speaking
much.
Speaking of cruising across the prairie, how many folks here are, by show of hands, ex-Saskatchewan residents? Come on, Glenn. Show your head. There's Jim. Glenn, come on, there's got to be more. Every time I go out to the street, I say hi to a stranger and they say, I'm from Saskatchewan. I see them all the time. Oh, okay. Fair enough. Just thought I'd throw that in there. Sorry to sort of barge in on that.
A friend of mine who came from Saskatchewan, he says, Saskatchewan's a good place to be from.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a beautiful place. I've been there. Any other questions, comments for Jason? This has been a really interesting conversation. It's flowed. This tax is a great thing. It sparked all of this dialogue. Right? Our conversation.
Well, sorry, I was just going to say, it has gotten a lot more people interested. We have seen, boosts to our Twitter following, we boost to our website traffic, all of this stuff. So, I mean, people, it does help people become aware of them. Like, I often tell this story, but a few years ago, I think it was in 2017, I was at a National Drive Electric Week event, and I was there with a Ford Fusion Energy from one of the local Ford dealers. And I had some people walk up and they were like, oh yeah, this is a plug-in electric vehicle. And it's like, yeah, it's plug-in hybrid. And I'm like, oh, wow. Did you bring this up from California for the show? And I say, oh no, it's just from the dealer, just, a couple of blocks away over there. And they're like, oh, wow, okay, interesting. And so, I think there's still a little bit of a gap sometimes that people don't realize that these vehicles are here, they're on dealer lots, you can take them for a test drive. And so I think, yeah, part of it this week and in the last couple of weeks here has been that people have kind of realized, they're like, oh yeah, they're available, maybe I should take a look at what's available, go and take a look at one. And yeah, so I mean, also kind of inadvertently, this has led the provincial government to admit that electric vehicles are kind of the way that this is going, which previously, like, they don't actually mention. They have this plan called Prairie Resilience, which is supposed to be kind of the local plan for how they're going to address climate change. And in the transportation section, they don't actually mention electric vehicles at all. It's a couple of years old now, but like it's kind of crazy that it doesn't mention electric vehicles at all for how they're going to deal with transportation emissions. And so this is kind of like a first, in a way, looking for the silver lining, I suppose. This is kind of a way for them to admit that, like, yeah, okay, we realize this is the way that it's headed. So
yeah, with a little wedge in the door, it's almost a marketing tax.
Jason, you mentioned you go to Manitoba. Are they making any more progress than Saskatchewan is as far as moving to EVs and infrastructure?
So it seems like perpetually they're a little bit ahead of us on adoption. And getting good numbers nationally is always difficult, so it's hard to say for sure. but I would not say so from what I've kind of seen so far. Like part of it, you know, is that they have a little bit of a benefit as far as corridors are concerned. You know, Ontario and Manitoba have large lakes in the province, and so that kind of constrains their number of corridors a little bit. You know, much like in BC with the mountains, you know how you can kind of constrain the number of highways and corridors a little bit. Here in Saskatchewan, like it's pretty flat, and so highways are kind of spread out all over the place, which makes it difficult to put in fast charging infrastructure to cover everything off. So that's kind of helped Manitoba a little bit in that covering off the Trans-Canada with fast charging stations, has actually helped, I would say, electrify more corridors in Manitoba than it has for us here in Saskatchewan. But I haven't seen a lot of pickup, and I'm not sure entirely why all the reasons are, more than, just I was born in Winnipeg, and being a former Manitoban, I know a little bit about the province. And so, I know that, more than half the population lives in Winnipeg. Obviously 98%, I think, of their electricity comes from hydro, 1% from wind. So it's like 99% renewable. They have, I think, cheapest or second cheapest electricity in the country. So there's a lot of, benefits for, they have a lot of advantages, I would say, over us here in Saskatchewan as far as electric vehicles are concerned. But they just haven't quite seen the uptake yet. So I'm not sure what all the reasons for that are so far, but hopefully it's just kind of something waiting for it to take off. I mean, obviously in Canada here, it's always been a little bit of a struggle because electric vehicles so far have focused more on cars and not as much on, crossovers and SUVs, which are becoming more popular. So maybe it's one of those things where now that we're seeing more crossovers and SUVs come out for electric vehicles, that, we'll see more takeoff on those. So.
Right on. These questions are always amazing, how many angles and twists and layers that come up when trying to look at a very specific aspect of EV ownership and the trend change to the new market. I think that the tax thing, I'm thinking it sounds more and more to me like it's a group of folks in charge there that might just be a little bit confused. Or
well, and one additional angle, if I can throw another one in there,
please,
is that we had a provincial election just this past October, and one of the pieces was that we had a further right party called the Buffalo Party run, and they didn't do particularly well in any of the cities or any of the urban areas, but in some of the rural ridings, they actually came in second to the Sask party. And so I think that has kind of made them a little bit more aware of kind of what's happening on that side of their party. And so, coming out of the election, going into the election, we had kind of hoped that they would be a little bit more concerned with what was happening in the middle and in the center for voters. But coming out of the election, they might actually be a little bit more concerned with what's happening on the right there. So that might be another piece here as well, as far as trying to introduce some policies that that are amenable to them. But
right on. This has been really useful, helpful. Jason, I really appreciate your time on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. If anyone else has a comment or a question quick to make here with Jason, would be a good time right now. But I'd sure like to thank you anyhow for your visit here. And I'd like you to send our greetings and support to all your membership there, 400 and growing rapidly, I hope. The idea of travel, of course, with the pandemic is shut down, but for my wife and I were planning a trip for last fall, late summer, and we never made it, and we would have been whizzing right past your door. That we can do that before long.
Yeah, I have to be outside today because tomorrow the high is 3, so it's not like we have stable, nice weather here yet. But it's a nice sunny day.
We're just enjoying this. So. We're just doing this while we wait for the next rain. Yeah, right on. So that's been so good. I had something really clever to say, and I've forgotten what it was. It obviously wasn't all that, but I'm just sort of a little caught for words because I'm surprised at sort of the breadth of the whole conversation and what it took on with you right away, which is, it just shows your insight and your of the whole matter, and it really is helpful and interesting. We're here anyway. This group gets together regularly. We're always happy to have you, but also if we can help in any way, we mentioned the letter writing and other elements there. So please, if we can help in any way, let us know. And like Glenn mentioned, he's with the EV Society. I know it's a national body where there's work being done as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, I'd encourage everybody to visit our website. All of our social media accounts are listed there. So, please give us a follow. And yeah, we're looking at a few things that we can do in the next few weeks here, to kind of, help keep this on people's radar. It doesn't go into effect as currently proposed until the 1st of October. So we've got some time to work some angles here, but I mean, obviously we need to keep this in the public's consciousness, and we need to keep it in the news cycle, to keep the government's attention. So it'll be, if people can give us a follow and check out those platforms, then that helps us to kind of be able to quickly communicate out when we have things that we want to work on. So
absolutely, Jason, a comment just came out from Danielle. She wants to see right on embroidered on something EV related, like maybe a coffee cup cozy. And I think that's a great way to end, and we can hold that up. So right on, man. Did he drop off?
Sorry, I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, you just moved away on my screen to a different spot. Couldn't find you there. So thanks a lot.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for the invite. Great
You're
to talk
very
to you.
welcome. Take care and all the best.
Thanks for a great presentation.
That was just wicked. That was great. Man, we need sunshine more often. It's bringing on the best. So far, so good, eh? I really, being Canadian, I don't know, I guess I could get a little bit sentimental in a way, but having grown up in Ontario, I always wanted to see more of the country. I've lived out here now on the coast for over 25 years, and I have to say, I just always thrilled. And actually, one of the benefits of pandemic, if there is such a word for that, is this Zoom business. We get to talk to these folks from all across the country, just like that. This would not be happening if we were still doing our Machosen House and downtown meetings, as certainly not as likely. I don't know. I don't think it would be happening. So that's a benefit. That was just so great, presentation. Our next item on the agenda, if you'll allow me, is the business with the Kona battery. I'm afraid to call it a recall because that word gets bandied about anyway. Jerry Delval, who has a Kona, the e-Kona, of course, is, I suppose, was that a month ago, Eric, Jerry? He's going to update us on this situation. So, Jerry, if you'd like to take that from now, that'd be great.
Okay. So those of you who participate on a regular basis, you'll probably remember that there were two discussions in the last 6 months to a year about the Kona issues on the battery. I've had 2 recalls for the battery. By the way, I have to say mine was the first or second one that was delivered in Victoria. It's a 2019, but it was built in 2018. And what I'm about to say applies to all the cars up to and about the same time that I got mine. All the newer ones, it doesn't apply. It also doesn't apply to Kia. They have a different battery supplier. So I've had 2 recalls. They were software upgrades. They never really told me what they were doing on the software upgrades, other than it's to optimize the charging software. But 2 days ago, I got an email from Hyundai Canada saying, this is a follow-up to the letter we sent you, which I had not received. So I went online. I went to the Hyundai recall number, because they did give me the recall number in the email, and I printed this off. So here's what I printed, and I'll read to you the part that matters. It says that the subject vehicles are equipped with battery cells manufactured in the LG Energy Solutions China Nanjing plant, in which the anode tab can be folded. A folded anode tab in the battery cell could allow the lithium plating on the anode tab to contact the cathode, resulting in an electrical short. And an electrical short internally within the battery cells increases the risk of a vehicle fire while parked, charging, and or driving. And so I called the dealer, and they said, oh, we've been waiting for your call. and we want your car to come in, and we have to set your car at 80% maximum charge, which I replied saying it's already done. I've been doing that since I first got the car. I thought it was good practice to not charge the car. Given the long range that the car has, it's not a problem for me. So I said, well, you still need to come. We have to make sure it's done. We have to take a picture, and all the cars in your category will be called by VIN number when the new batteries are arrived. So I don't know what they're getting. I don't know if they're getting battery packs, if they're getting the whole floorboard. I have no idea. But it's following the fires that the original cars had. We've had ours since 2019, but the car's actually been out since 2017. And the first region that was delivered was Korea, of course, perhaps also Australia. Then the second region was Germany and Norway. And the third region was British Columbia and Quebec. And so the initial cars to British Columbia and Quebec, like mine, are of that category. All the new ones have a different battery supplier. They quoted 5 fires that they've had. So I guess the government authorities consider it serious enough that they've basically said, thou shalt replace the batteries. So I don't know if the battery anode issue is at the cell level or if it's at the battery level. I would think it's at a cell level, because you wouldn't have an anode on the whole battery. You'd have a connection that connects all the anodes together, but you wouldn't have an anode. So I guess it's either factory defects or a bad design on the battery. I would have to think it's a factory defect, because they specifically point to the Nanjing factory. That's basically all I have to offer. I will keep you updated. They told me that they would call me relatively quickly, but they won't call me until the battery is in. So meanwhile, I have to go to the dealer and to prove that I'm at 80%, and then I have to sit and wait for the new battery to arrive.
Jerry, can I just jump in here?
Please do.
I sent an email to the chat there, a link to the chat for Don Griffiths. Don Griffiths has got a Hyundai Kona. He's a member of the Vancouver Electric Vehicle Group. He was on the call this morning telling us that he got a letter, 3 letters from Hyundai. One of the letters said he had to go into the dealer, and as a thank you for going into the dealer, he'd be offered a $250 credit towards whatever they were going to do to his car. And then he got another email from them saying that, because he has over-the-air on his car, they did an over-the-air upgrade and they've already set his battery at 80%. So I don't know whether he's got to go into the dealer or not. So different models of Hyundai's bought at different times have different feature. I think it's Hyundai's Blue Link or something like that. So,
well, that's I can shine a little bit of light on that, because when I went online to see for the letter that I had not received, it said, please enter your VIN number. So once I entered the VIN number, it said, oh yeah, you're in that group. So he should have found out that way if he was in the group. And then the dealer confirmed to me that my car had been flagged as being in the group. So now one of the prior recalls that I had was they also wanted to do an upgrade on the rear brake software algorithm, and they said, oh no, it was done. They had done that at the last software upgrade for the battery charging. The only thing I have to say is that I don't understand what limiting the battery to 80% and a defective anode that could touch the cathode have to do with one another. But that's what they say.
Yeah. Jerry, might it be because of the heat and with the expansion or whatever that they could then contact if they're at a too high a temperature?
It's the only possibility.
Okay. Also, someone told me the other day that this might also apply to the Bolt as well, and that I mean, the Bolt its running gear is all made out of Korea. Whether it's Hyundai who makes it, I'm not sure. But I'm wondering if you know, or if anyone on the call that has a Bolt, if you've been getting notices as well with respect to your batteries and the Bolts.
I just want to make a correction though, Don. It's not Hyundai that supplies the batteries, it's LG.
Yes, and they
Provides the batteries from LG.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think we've heard anything through the club about the bolts at all in that regard. Anyone else got a call? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. This is Danielle. I've got a Hyundai EV as well, but mine's model year is 2020, and it was manufactured in April of 2020. And I've been trying to find out if these issues apply to me or not, and it's been challenging to find that out.
No, they don't, Danielle. I'm almost certain. But here's what you can do. Go to the Hyundai Canada website and just Google, say, Hyundai Canada recalls.
Okay.
And then the website will immediately pop up to the right page, and they will ask you to put the VIN number.
Okay.
Put the VIN number in there, and it will tell you what the recalls that affect your car are. But I do not believe that your car it's too young, too new. They've already fixed that at the manufacturing level before they built your car.
Okay, so yours is yours a 2019 or 2018?
It's a 2019, but I took delivery in early January. It had to be built in 2018.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it's weird. Just one more thing to add. So I actually did have one recall, and I dealt with that in last December, which I think it was the braking software. So it might have been the same one that you had with your rear brakes. But
Right.
after they did the upgrade, I could not detect anything different about my car. So the way it was handling and everything. So yeah.
No, Danielle, I think you're okay, but for your own peace of mind, just go on the website and put your VIN number in, and you'll see. By the way, for everybody, the brake software upgrade, it's because the car uses the rear brake so little that they need to make sure that it gets enough actuation so that it doesn't freeze up.
Just saw something on the Chevrolet website about the Chevrolet Bolt using different separators in their batteries and not thinking that a recall or replacement of batteries is necessary.
Right on. It's all very good, useful information, folks.
Thanks, Bruce.
Anyone else got a question for Jerry on the mic? Did you want?
I was just going to add that I have a 2019 Bolt, and I did take it in for the recall to downgrade the charging to 90%. And since then, I've heard nothing. And the online forums for the Chevy Bolt are also saying the same thing, that there's been no further information as to whether or not there will be any kind of action other than Chevy's original promise that sometime in the future, they would have an upgrade, which may be a software upgrade, or it may be somehow a repair to the battery. In the States, especially in California, many people with the Chevy Bolt are arranging through GM to have their troubled Bolt traded in on a replacement, or to buy it back so they can get some other vehicle. But this hasn't, so far as I know, been offered to anybody in Canada. And that's about where it is now. I'm just waiting.
Yeah, I sent you a link to that web article about the Chevrolet Bolts and the batteries. It's in the chat.
It's in the chat there, folks. David, that's great. Thanks, Mike. Well, Jerry, thanks so much again for that update. It's really useful. I know it puts a lot of people's minds at ease. It actually helps because then the rest of us can spread that up, pass that on to those folks who are inquiring. I have two people that purchased Konas, and I was part of their advice network when they bought them. So and I chat with those people occasionally, and it's nice to know, to have that immediate experience. It's super helpful. Anyone else have a question for Jerry, or we can move on here a little bit? We're winding down, but we do have a bit of time for sure. If anyone has a question that comes up after we moved on, please feel free to put that in the chat as usual. We have next on our lineup here today, our main man on, front man on government and non-government and intergovernment, and I don't know, there's about 16 committees that Glenn heads up on the club. He's going to talk to us now. I'll just let him take it away, the fleet vehicle information. This is fascinating stuff.
I appreciate that, David, and that's certainly not worth more than 2 beer.
Yeah, Glenn does everything. What it says here.
Okay, we're going to kick in here. So yeah, we figured we'd have a look at fleet vehicles, battery electric vehicles. In this entire conversation, you're not going to hear the hydrogen word again.
Perfect.
That's for you, David. So yeah, battery electric fleet vehicles. Here we go. Or for those people who are very keen on Dr. Strangelove. And this is not an all-inclusive list. I'm sure I've missed a couple. And it's good news when I can't keep up with all the stuff going on. That's just really awesome. And I'll also say that we do not promote any specific EV maker. We know, and we get no editorial direction from anyone other than our membership. So, moving on. A lot of you people will be pretty aware of most of these environmental benefits. When we get gasoline and diesel onto the island here, which all has to come by diesel ferries and diesel trucks. Every time that we burn a liter of gas, we're getting 3,800 grams per liter. You might be wondering why I'm talking in grams. And that means you have 34,200 grams per 100 kilometers, but a heavy truck will kick out about 167,000 grams per 100 kilometers. Now, on the island here, our grid is all hydroelectric, which is only 12 grams of GHGs per kilowatt hour. And that means your average car is only kicking out 192 grams compared to 34,200. And a heavy BEV heavy truck would only kick out 14,400 compared to 167,000. So that's a huge benefit. They emit nothing while moving or parked, which is very important. If you've ever seen an ambulance in an alleyway, trying to take care of somebody who's been beat up or whatever, everybody within like 10 meters is sucking diesel the entire time it's there. If you're same thing with fire trucks, when they're doing their business, they're emitting the entire time. And police officers, on an average 8-hour shift, they're idling for 5 hours. And you know, a good deal of that stuff ends up inside the cabin with them, and all of it ends up with everyone around them. BEVs don't leak oil and gas onto the road. So, you know, the advice that we've had a dry spell for a while and we get some rain, you know, be careful, give yourself lots of braking room. That's because all the oil coming back up that's been dripped on the road the entire time. So, more BEVs, cleaner roads. And BEVs are in operation. You don't hear them doing their biz. Economic benefits. Fuel costs range from about 2 cents for a car to 14 cents for a heavy truck per kilometer. ICE vehicle, 13 cents for a car to above 57 cents for a heavy truck per kilometer. BEVs require an oil, belt, alternator, or fuel system maintenance, and because of the regenerative braking, very little brake maintenance. So the vehicle stays in service longer. Your average Class 8 semi-truck is off the road 2 or 3 days a month doing things like oil changes and brake changes, tires. Well, tires would have to be done anyway, but oil and brake changes, those things are actually keeping the truck off the road from earning a dollar. Plus, because there's almost zero that has friction in a BEV, that means that unlike an ICE powertrain, they don't age as quickly, right? So they're worth very little at the end of service. Whereas a BEV, a secondhand owner or whatever, the secondhand owner is looking for that total cost of operation benefit. Plus, if battery is trashed, then there's still people looking for large format batteries, especially if they're from Liskeety Island. Bless you, Don. Can you mute?
Sorry.
Okay, so we're going to roll into some emergency vehicles here. Ambulances. This particular one is a Nissan Ambulance, full BEV in Tokyo. Can't find any BEVs yet in North America. There are ones down in Ontario where they've taken pretty much everything except the drivetrain off of the alternator in the vehicle. They've put them to large, 5 kilowatt batteries in the vehicle. So at least when the vehicle is stopped, it's not emitting diesel. So that's good. It's a step up, but I'll talk more a bit about these in a moment. Fire trucks. Last year, okay, actually no, 2019, there was a German, it was a hybrid fire truck that it was mainly electric on drive, but it had a diesel generator sort of as a backup to keep it going. This one here is the E1 EV1, and it's out of Scotland, 100% electric. So I expect to see those showing up in North America, and I suspect that Vancouver might be the first one doing that. Police. Police forces, and I'm going to do a whole lot more on this in another presentation. But police forces, as I said, they spend a lot of time idling, and these are cheaper to operate, and people just don't try and outrun you in the first place. So they're pretty awesome. And here we got, so that's a Model 3, then we got the Model Y here. We've actually shown 5 different police forces on the South Island here. Beautiful white Model Y. We'd shown them a vehicle that has more space inside than their is more comfortable. We asked for their biggest officers to show up and hop in them. One officer was 6'5", 300 pounds, and with all his gear on, he was pretty happy in there. So it's kind of like the right size vehicle. And the department saves a hockey sock of money in operations and maintenance. Like I say, more of that on another day. Pickups. So I'm going to show you a picture here, the Chevy Silverado and the Ford F-150. The electric version should be showing up sometime in 2022, maybe. I can't show you what the electric ones actually look like because they haven't revealed what they're going to look like. They haven't revealed if there's going to be a huge frunk in these vehicles or not. They haven't revealed much in the way of production plans, although Ford is hoping to work up to about 38,000 a year. And I think they make somewhere north of 700,000 F-150s a year. So you can see they're all in on EVs. At least we'll get some. Rivian, they're coming onto the market, hopefully in 2022, although, actually, no, I'm going to take that back. You're going to see some delivered to the early reservation holders, hopefully this summer. And this is an awesome truck. Lots of room in the back, the biggest frunk going anywhere. A big cargo tunnel back here behind the second row of seats. It is a pricey piece of kit. Rivian is kind of following Tesla's route of starting at the high end of the market and then working their way down. So I'm not sure how many of these we might see in fleet use, but it'll be there should somebody want to make that choice. And then we have the Tesla Cybertruck, which should be showing up in 2022. The factory is still being worked on down in Austin, Texas. Mr. Musk has been pressed 5 ways from Sunday to commit that they'd be cranking them out this year. The last thing, like 2 days ago, he was asked, "Oh, will we get a Cybertruck this year?" And he said, "We'll be in full production of the Model Y this year in Texas." So, yeah. So I'd say it's safer to say 2022. Yeah, and that'll be a kick-ass truck because it's going to be competitive price-wise with these two guys, probably leading them, I might say, and they're going to crank them out at a much higher rate. Tesla's got something like 1 million reservations for the Cybertruck. So they have a lot of demand that they have to answer to. Cargo vehicles. I'm going to show you this Mercedes-Benz E-Sprinter, which should be coming to North America as a 2023 product. Again, you know, the electric motors up front, skateboard underneath, in box truck, flatbeds, people movers, and an ambulance. More importantly, in that, you know, companies like Dodge, now Stellantis, they frequently buy these up and rebadge them to sell them under their name. And even the Ford Transit is really Mercedes-Benz product underneath. So we might see these earlier in somebody else's badge than 2023. Cargo and waste vehicles. Here we have Lion out of Quebec. This is already being produced. Freightliner, which is owned by Daimler out of Europe. The North American headquarters is down in Oregon. Lion, of course, is out of Quebec. So these are both, this is already in the hands, limited numbers are in the hands of customers on the west coast of the US. And these, I can't remember who's got them in their hands now, but they're available. It's a Class 8 truck. And Lion also produces a waste vehicle, Class 8. A little bit more about Lion, in that they produce an entire range of vehicles, including buses. And the interesting thing about this slide is down here in the bottom, customers. Got some pretty big customers in there. Another slide for cargo vehicles. Here we go, Rivian. So the other thing that Rivian is doing, which is probably slowing down their production of their truck and the SUV that's going to be based on their truck, is because Ford came along, gave them $500 million, and Amazon came along initially for $700 million. And then Ford had enough of a look at what was happening inside Rivian, and they pulled out. And then Rivian threw some more money at them. All that to say that Rivian's got a contract to produce 100,000 of these vans for Amazon between here and 2030. And these are already on the streets in California, delivering. Workhorse company, and they have got a very large contract from a company called Pride Group Leasing. A bit more about them. The contract is over the next 4 or 5 years for 6,500 of these delivery vehicles. And Pride is a leasing company. So they'll own it and then lease it out to people like, you know, UPS or wherever else. They'll lease them out. So we should see those on the road here soon. GM announced right after they promised to give, I think, a 1.5 billion spent in Ontario. They promised they're going to bring out the EV600 here. And they say they're going to have limited numbers coming off the line by the end of 2021. we're going to take that at face value. 4D Transit. Notice it looks a whole lot like an E-Sprinter. Just a coincidence. Anyway, 2022, we should see some of these on the road. Arrival. These are an interesting British company. Instead of going out and spending a couple $2 billion to build a factory and then shipping all their vehicles around the world, they've kind of come down on the line of creating micro factories that can be set up for something less than $100 million. And they set up these factories close to wherever the market is. And you know, a lot of the vehicle is aluminum, but all the body panels are CRP, so fancy plastic, really. There is no paint on it. The color is baked all the way through, so you don't care about scratches. The pieces are very, very resistant to bangs and bumps and stuff. They don't dent. And when you decide a piece is too mangled up to be used, it just gets melted down. It goes back to the factory, gets melted down and made into another panel. So it's a really interesting concept. And the first one in North America is being built down in Georgia. Peachland. And last up, Canoe. So Canoe here, people might have seen they have another vehicle, which is tighter than this. And it's meant to be a like an Uber or a co-owned thing. So it comes around, picks up a number of people, drops them off. COVID came along and they decided they're going to put a lot more effort into delivery vehicles. So they have this really interesting vehicle, and it can get up to like 400 or 500 kilometers of range. And the pricing is pretty compelling. They only fly in the ointment, and they say they're going to produce by 2023. But the fly in the ointment is that the same team that was supposed to bring Faraday Future vehicles to the market, or a lot of them are involved in this. So the concept is brilliant. The vehicle is brilliant. I'm not really sure about the production team that has to bring this out. Construction equipment. Okay, here we've got the Case Backhoe. This is meant to be used on site for a steady 8-hour shift. And of course, being if you've ever sat by the side of the road and watched a backhoe work, there's a guy working the backhoe. There's usually 1 or 2 guys with shovels. And then in between the digs with the backhoe, the guy pulls the bucket back out of the trench. And then he waits for the guys with the shovels doing whatever they're doing. And generally the vehicle is sitting there and running. The diesel is running, and the guys in the trench are sucking it in. The guy in the cab is sucking it in. The people driving past are sucking it in. The flag holders are sucking in all that diesel. This will sit there, not emit anything, and not use any energy either. So they're they know they can run a full 8-hour shift, no problems there. And then we have Bobcat electrics. All their electric vehicle or electric tools. And these all have the advantage in that they can work indoors. And again, all made for your 8-hour shift. Okay, now heavy Class 8 vehicles. Freightliner. Remember, I told you that they were Daimler owned. So these are already working on the US West Coast. A local company, Loblaws, has stated they're going to buy a whole bunch. I can't find out how many, but they said they're going to do it, so that's great. They're about 240 to 400 kilometer range vehicles, depending on how you set it up. So that's good. And then Lion, again, out of Quebec, they got an order with Canadian National Railways for 50 of their Class 8 tractor trailers, and that'll do intermodal services. So taking things from the rail yard to a shipyard, for instance, might be one of the things they do there. And this other company, I'm not sure you've heard of them. Sounds like Tesla. Anyway, Their semi-truck, Quality Foods here on the island, has ordered 3. Walmart Canada has upped their buy couple times to it now stands at about 130. And I remember I talked about Pride Group, that leasing company. They've got an order in for 150. So yeah, that's going to be really good. Okay, so that's the end of that thing, and hopefully the start of the beautiful future.
Glenn, I can give you a couple of little updates. Saanich Fire has gotten back to us, and they're interested in scheduling a meeting as soon as they know what's happening with the current circuit breaker. So they want to talk about electric fire trucks.
Cool.
Rivian is already staffing a dealership in Vancouver, or retail office. I don't know which it's going to be. And companies don't start doing that unless they're 2 or 3 months away from having some product to sell.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
There's this other company called Zoox, ZOOX, in the United States that's doing a trial of an autonomous vehicle right now.
Right on. We also have a comment here. Police in Switzerland, Danielle. Apparently, police in Switzerland are using the Kona. Wonder if they got the recall letter.
Yeah, I try to keep things to North America, because if I drop into Europe for a lot of stuff, well, we'd be here all day.
Do you have some quick announcements, or maybe there's nobody left?
Yeah, there's a few, and these are real quick. We with our this week we started our links with Victoria Now, the news site, and it's bringing us a lot of traffic to the website. In addition, we're giving away a free weekend in an electric car every week for the next 12 weeks. And we had our first winner yesterday, who couldn't have been more excited when we called him on the phone. And so we got 12 more of those to come, which is going to get a lot of people who've never been in an electric car, as this guy told me this morning, a chance to drive one and maybe buy one. The other thing, what was the other thing I was going to talk? Oh, sponsorship.
Yeah.
We've reached out to a lot of groups who do the same kind of advocacy that we do, and companies that are in the same markets that we're in. And we have 2 pretty major sponsors have stepped up already. We've got very positive responses from 2 or 3 others that we're expecting to come aboard. So you're going to see a few little widgets on the side of our homepage that you can click through to go to their companies and what they're offering, all of which are environmentally friendly and EV friendly and all of that. And it means that we can keep membership free and start doing a lot more than we've been doing, even though we've been doing a lot. I know. We might even be able to get a new notepad for Glenn and pencils for the research. I know. This could be good.
Yeah,
I'm speechless.
Jerry and Ted need some too.
Got him some new pencil crayons too.
Exactly. Oh, right. Crayons, Glenn. Crayons. Cool.
Crayons.
I know. Now you're
How about some sidewalk chalk?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You get 9 tons worth?
These PowerPoints are going to get very colorful now. Anyway. So
for all of you with your looks of your astounded looks, that we are now officially ended the meeting. I'm declaring it over. If Jim's got more to say, he can carry on. Thanks, Danielle. And
you're actually supposed to stop the recording before we started this. So this is you're going to edit this out of the recording, I hope.
Well, that's for we have a blackmail committee.
Yeah. we set aside clips.
See you, Bruce.
We save them.
ID4 pricing, anybody know it?
Is it even going to be available here?
Yeah, ID4 will. ID3 probably not. I say it's in the high 40s. I can't. Yeah. I would look at who'd have the best info. Electric autonomy might have a good.
45,000 start, Jack says. Under the incentive, 45,000, and then up from there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, there's been some good reviews by Monroe. Monroe did the Model 3, Model Y teardowns. He's doing
Yes.
one for the ID4, and as well as, taking it on road trips and stuff. So if you're interested in the ID4, Monroe Live on YouTube. Good place for that.
My cousin in Dublin, Ireland has got a test drive with an ID3 for Tuesday. I'm really looking forward to hearing his report.
Cool.
Thanks, Mike. Bolt. Dropping like flies now.